guys, welcome back to my Steps to Sobriety, the show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today is another beautiful day for another fantastic interview. I have got Kristy Laschober with me. Kristy is a woman who, like me, is no longer taking every day for granted and has gone through hell and kept going, and is today a very different woman than she was several years ago. And I'm so pleased to have Kristy here with me on my show to explore the lessons that she has learned and give you guys out there a chance to learn from her story. So you can choose then if you really want to do the same mistakes as Kristy has done, or if you maybe want to learn from her story and move on, maybe in a different direction than at the moment you're heading. So Kristy, thank you so much for coming onto my show. I'm dead excited to talk to you.
Thank you. This is great. Thanks for having me.
An absolute pleasure. Kristy, you have got a very turbulent story and a beautiful story. And it's sometimes hard to actually think, where the hell do we start with you? I think I start by going really back when you were a younger girl and when you were sort of a teenager and romantic and wanted to do something with your life. What was your dream? What did you want to do when you were a girl?
I always loved fashion, so I wanted to be in the fashion industry, which I was for a long time. Yes, yeah.
And fashion industry, tell me, so what did you do? How did you develop yourself?
Well, I worked in retail a lot, and I worked in the manufacturing end, sold clothes to different stores, in surfwear and young girls, and then shoes, and I ran the whole gamut of fashion. Shopped a lot, and so yeah, I was all about the fashion for a lot of years.
Was that because you truly loved working with the fabric, or with hindsight, were there some deeper thoughts that with some beautiful clothes you can cover up scars and cover up things that you maybe don't want to see, don't want others to see?
It probably is a little bit of both. I love art, and it's kind of a way to be artistic. I love dressing people. I loved everything about putting together an outfit and just having it pop. I loved all of that. And as you said, looking back, I can see fashion was a way, clothes is a way to present yourself in a particular way. And as a young girl, I had things that I used to hide because I had some medical issues when I was born. So I don't know, maybe subconsciously that was underneath. But for the most part, I just came from a family that my mom, my sister, and I all wore the same size. So we had three wardrobes of all different clothes, and that was our fun that we did. So yeah, so it's probably a little bit of both.
And how beautiful is that, to actually take someone who has got not really the kind of knack, the flair for dressing up, and then changing that person into the kind of wow. And you see that in many films where sort of the country bumpkin suddenly turns into this absolute stunning wow person. And yes, clothes are so powerful. It can be such a beautiful way of communicating. Because after all, 95% of our communication is nonverbal. So,
right.
And the way you dress, the way you behave, the way you hold your shoulders, all that works together to leave an impression within a short period of time. So clothes make men, or something along these lines. I don't know what the right saying is, but it holds very true. So you had a very powerful ability.
Yes. Yeah. And it really, I loved bringing out people's inner when they were feeling kind of shy or not sure, I would help them be bold with their clothes, whether not just bold in color, but just bold, and to say, how do you want to look and dress? And now let's do it. I think a lot of women, we feel like we need permission to be a certain way, be bold, be powerful, be the way we know inside we are. And I didn't have a lot of tools that I do now, so I just use clothes for those tools at that time.
Very good. So that was what, soon after school? So you were what, 18, 20, around about thereabouts, when you started that passion to make it a living?
Well, let's see, probably about then. Yeah. And then I was also going to school a little bit, but as I said, I was born with a lot of medical problems. So I was in the hospital a lot as a child. I had birth defects, and I was born in 1965. So back then, any sort of disability was kind of shunned, very much so. And so my mom, I know, worked real hard at getting me into the regular schools. And I don't have a thumb on my left hand, and I have a small thumb on my right hand, and other internal issues. So I was in the hospital a lot. And so that's kind of where my addiction started, was with pain pills and pain shots that I got. So I was in the hospital, and then I would come out and I'd work, and I'd get in the hospital and come out, and then I'd do school. So fashion was always part of it, but it was peppered with a lot of other health stuff at the same time. So I was kind of living two different lives almost, sick and fashion is kind of.
Indeed, right. Oh, please, I can so see that, why you would escape into that beautiful Cinderella kind of dream to dress up and be that different you, because you didn't necessarily want to be that person there. You didn't want to define yourself as the person with the disability. You wanted to define yourself as this beautiful, young, vivacious girl that is going out there and is having fun.
Yeah.
And then of course, with the fun, in the late teens, early 20s, did alcohol come into the game?
Yeah, it did early on. I think because I was so used to changing the way I felt with Demerol and Dilaudid and morphine that was given to me by nurses and doctors. So I always thought if I wasn't feeling just great, that I needed to change it in order to feel good. And so I remember the first time that someone bought beer. I think I was in ninth grade. And all I wanted to know is, how many beers will it take to get me drunk? I don't know why I remember that clearly. Like, wow, it wasn't even like have a beer. It was like, how do I get the results that I want from this? And so it was just kind of a way of life. I, for many years, didn't think you can just be doing life without a mind-altering substance. It felt like that wasn't my life at all. And I thought it was always going to be like that. It's just, if you don't feel good, you do something about it, or, change it up. And you never quite got what you needed, except for maybe a fleeting second. And then it was worse. And the roller coaster.
Beautiful, the fleeting second, isn't it? And we were so hunting that second. That was, oh dear. I feel, oh God, you're my twin sister there, and your mouth is speaking my words, so that's a bit spooky. But then again, we're children of the 60s, so at that time when you were young, alcohol was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. And did your parents drink?
No, my dad would have a beer with pizza or Mexican food. So that's about it. No, they didn't drink.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had it in my grandparents. My grandfather died of alcoholism. I think he was 40 something. So I had it in my grandparents, but my mom and dad said they will not, drink or use, and they didn't.
And of course, it was because your parents might have very well had the lessons given to them the hard way to
They
grow
did.
up in a household with an alcoholic as a parent. And that's a complete different story in its own right. But you didn't have that benefit. You saw the benefits of them being sober, but you didn't see the black and white. You didn't see the life that alcohol can destroy.
No.
But you only had a kind of a normal childhood, the way it sounds.
Yeah.
And then you went out there and you wanted to make an impression. You wanted to be someone, and you learned that alcohol and drugs can alter your mind. You can get rid of some of the pain. At least that's what you want to do, and you can feel more relaxed and less shy, and all the other good things that drugs and alcohol do.
Yeah, as a young person. Yeah. And it was really, for me, looking back, it was about emotions,
Mm.
because I had lots of things, lots of emotions like kids do. And when you're in the hospital and, I had loving father, loving mother, my mom was like by my side, my dad worked, and he would be like the first face I'd see when I'd wake up in the morning, like, almost begging me to be okay. And I could not disappoint him. I would say, I'm fine, because I really never thought anyone really wanted to know exactly how I really felt. So I was
Oh,
always fine, and they loved me so much. So I knew that that was my role. And so when it came to perceived negative emotions, it took me really until I was like in my 50s in prison to understand that. So that's why I'm so vocal about it now, because women, I think we don't know that all the emotions that we have make up the amazingness of who we are. I finally realized that, because that's a whole other story, but it was the emotions. I thought I always had to be a certain way for everybody, and if I didn't feel that way, then I wanted to alter it. And then I'm always managing that.
and it's the
And
people
years go
pleasing.
by.
I
Yeah.
know, isn't it? The years go by because that is your mind becomes so fixated on that, but at a level that is not necessarily conscious. You always strive to be that girl that others are happy with, and if you have negative emotions, you think, oh, that's not right. That's my fault. It's I should be ashamed that I've got these emotions because I'm not fulfilling what I have set out to be, the kind of ideal that I've created in my head that I must be.
Right.
And oh dear me. And yeah, I can feel you.
Hard. It's hard to manage others' emotions when you can't even manage your own. So if you can't manage anybody's emotions, then why try to just give me what you got to change it? And then that would numb me out, so I wouldn't even be aware
Yeah.
of people's emotions. It's a vicious cycle, as you know.
Uh,
Yeah.
but then you were in fashion. You created a life. You had fun. You were out there, and then Mr. Right came along. Tell us a bit about Mr. Right.
Hmm. Well, I was like 25 or so, and I was still, I hadn't gotten sober yet. I was still in the throes of addiction. And because of my medical issues, people would make a lot of excuses for me. Well, she needs it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I really don't, but, go with that. And so I met a man who he became a police officer, and we were married for a long time. I ended up getting sober. After we were married 5 years or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I got pulled over by his sergeants, which was not fun at
Okay,
all.
so
Horrible.
yeah, there was the sign from fate delivered
Yeah.
as a 2x4 over the head.
Yeah.
Wake up, girl.
I was in California. That's where I lived. And I would have rather them taking me to Tijuana than back home, because I knew then I knew the gig was up. I knew that that I was in deep trouble, because I was actually on my way to the airport to pick up my sister and her family. And I had all these emotions. Again, I didn't know how to deal. So I took a few pills and I did that and it didn't work. And then I took more and then it was too much. And, the cycle. And then I got pulled over, which was horrible, but thank God I did. And then I got sober. And that's actually when I started my own wardrobe styling business after I was sober for a long time. And it was really great and successful until I relapsed almost 10 years later.
Wow. The wardrobe styling is, of course, a disease in its own right. And with that, I mean, being self-employed, that's the disease, not the wardrobe styling. And the disease of self-employment means that you're working 16 hours a day because you're constantly out there. You are it. You're responsible for your fate. You know that the money needs to come in. And if the money is coming in, oh, great, but then you have to pay taxes and so on and so on. Was that your life?
It was, although at the same time I was sober, but yet I was just physically sober. I had a sponsor and I had been working the program, but looking back, I didn't have the deep emotional sobriety that I have now. I think because, the first time I ever had any pain drugs was when I was, a few hours old. So that was deep in me so to actually stop everything was very weird. It was like shocking, like, wow, I could actually hear birds sing. And it was surreal. So I was just going through that for a while rather than getting deep emotional. So while I'm doing my business, I loved it. I had the best clients and the best time, but I still had emotions. It was hard for me to make sense of it. And I always thought that I always turned it on myself. When you have emotions that really don't make sense, like you can't say, oh, this is why, then I think, what's wrong with me? I thought something was always wrong with me, which I now realize nothing was wrong with me, but no one ever told me. I never shared. And so no one told me that nothing was wrong with me. We are crazy sometimes, right?
No, you have just nailed it. You have just described what every single person on this earth feels. This confusion, this uncertainty, the little voices that keep telling you, oh, no, there's something wrong with you. And you think, oh, okay, you must know best. And and it's just, no, it's rubbish. Our brains, I don't know why our brains do that, but all of us have these voices. I think one of these things is that you need to learn what to do with these voices.
Yeah. Exactly.
Of you. That's us. And it's a lesson that we need to learn. Some of us learn the really, really hard way. But those who learn it and those who can manage these voices and those who can be mindful of really what is going on, and saying, okay, you tried to warn me. Okay, what for? What's your opinion? No, sorry, completely wrong. Get off. So that's good. So listen to these kind of things, but listen and then make your own informed consent decision and say, nah, that's rubbish what I'm thinking here.
And I think that's one of the downfalls about people in addiction is that it's a really isolating disease. So you're alone, I would always say I'm like my own private island. I wasn't alone per se, but I was alone in my thoughts because again, I can't manage feelings. So if I tell you what's going on, then I'll be expected to maybe manage them for you. And it was just I didn't have tools really, even in sobriety for the first little bit. So I think the biggest way to combat that is to share. That's why you're doing the podcast. That's why I'm sharing my story, so that it dissipates shame. It dissipates the thoughts that say you are alone, you're different, you are unique, no one has those crazy thoughts. And then so when you say it, then and other people agree with you. Like when I went to prison, people started to write me letters about how they were feeling. I was like, now you're telling me? I wish you would have told me when they may have, I may have not listened, but that was the start of me realizing, and it's not just me. It's not just me. It's not just me.
That's why I've written My Steps to Sobriety, to share that and to put it out there. And there are quite a few stories very similar to what you have just said, which I've included in there to exactly describe that. It is there's one chapter in there called A High Functioning Alcoholic, and it's basically all about the features that we try to protect ourselves with when we are still drinking. And then the next chapter is the dry alcoholic. And that is exactly what you and I have been at times. I was able to stop drinking after having had some some alcohol on my breath when I came to work. And I was under the protection of my medical counsel. So I had to get my shit right, to get myself clean. And I was clean, and I kept clean, kept dry for several years. But like you, I was not dealing with the emotions. I scraped a little bit. I had, for a short period of time, I had some sessions with a psychologist, and that did just that little bit. And I thought, hey, great, it's done now. Wonderful. And yeah, I had nowhere even gotten close to all the things, all the negative emotions in me. And guess what? Yes, I had dealt with a little bit of depression then, and that was quite nice. But guess what? Life throws you new challenges, and life brings out old scars, and turns out that they are still full of pus and festering, despite the fact that you've heaped years of whatever on it. The trauma is still there, and it still keeps trying to fester and come out. So this is what it is. This is life. So therefore, these negative emotions that you've described, they are so there, aren't they? And we need to learn about them. We need to deal with them, because otherwise you're going to end up like me, relapsing. And when I say relapsing, I thought, oh, no, I've beaten the alcohol. It's all good. I can now drink carefully again, because I'm a grown up. I'm in control. Yeah, about that. So, and then very quickly I was in the bad old ways with new trauma and etc. So you started drinking again. How did that go? Was it drinking, or was it the pain medications?
At first, well, I ended up having several things happen emotion-wise that I didn't deal with, which was my father dying of cancer, my husband having an affair. I was in I wanted to adopt, so I did a foster adopt program on my own, because I couldn't have kids. And then I started to relate to little African-American boys being abandoned. And I thought, why am I relating to that? That was not my life at all. And it really touched me so deeply. Looking back, I think it was from all my hospital, stays, weeks and weeks at a time, and being left alone there. But at the time, I didn't know that. And it touched something so deep that it kind of scared me. And so I shared with one person, but I didn't, the response I got didn't make me feel better. And I ended up going in the hospital for my kidneys, and a nurse asked if I wanted it, or not even asked, she said, I'll bring you a pain shot. And it was like, everything stopped, and I knew I didn't need it. I wasn't in pain. But I kind of looked around at the time. I was seeing somebody who had relapsed. I'd met him in the rooms of AA, and I was by myself, and I thought, I want a little bit of relief. And so I said to the nurse, yep, I'll take it. And I knew my heart, that was the worst thing for me to do. And immediately when I got it, I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. I needed relief. And it was it makes me emotional. It was just the old memory of like that lie that says, I am enough. We are okay, Kristy. Everything is right with the world now. Until it wasn't. And then I was like wanting more. And then they gave me tons of Vicodin before I left. And I ended up not stopping. And the guy that I was seeing, he had relapsed on methamphetamine. I went to help him, and I said, let me see what this stuff is. And I tried it and I couldn't stop. So that was after almost 10 years sobriety. And I'm not a binger. I'm the type that if I'm in every day. And I stopped doing my business, which I loved my clients. I'd been doing it for quite a number of years. They counted on me. One time I went when I was using, and it was horrific because I'm trying to manage, using and being with my client. And I felt so much shame just envelop me. And so I said, I can't do this. And I didn't stop doing the drug or the drinking. I stopped seeing my clients, and then it just spiraled down. And that's when I ended up selling this drug so that I can still maintain my mortgage and still use every day. And that's how I relapsed. And yeah, it was fast and furious.
But then to a certain degree, that was the power of P. We call methamphetamine over here in New Zealand, we call it P. And it is an incredibly addictive drug and very, very powerful in its hold onto your life. And as you say, it goes very, very quickly, isn't it?
Yeah. And I remember thinking I wanted to try that so that I could not do the pills and the Demerol, because that had my throat. I mean, that like had me. And I remember trying the methamphetamine, and it made me not want the other. And I thought, oh, okay, phew, now I cannot do that. And now this won't get me because I'm not going to, snort this every day. This is not who I am. But then that got me, that and GHB. And it's the whole lifestyle in regard to the whole lifestyle, selling hotels, cars. It's all that. It was all that. And I didn't tell anybody. And so I was alone, and I couldn't stop. No matter what, I could not stop. And meanwhile, my ex-husband's a police officer still in the town. So that's a whole other realm of dodging. And it's just, you get in this realm of, when you look back, it sounds so ridiculous, but you just get in this, it's just another world. It's just another world, another realm. And, I'd bake cookies and sell drugs at the same time, and thinking that this is normal. In fact, that's why I got, the sentence that I did, because I was still in my mind thinking I'm doing a business, like my wardrobe business, and I had a spreadsheet of different things, and that's what I know. Spreadsheet, stupid. But that's how I wasn't like thinking that I'm this, I don't know. So yeah, spreadsheet, all laid out.
You're a very systematic woman. I give you that. That's beautiful. But remember, in most of the Al Capone films, or in most of the stories, they hide the spreadsheet, not on a computer. Yeah. They put it somewhere where it can't be found.
Yeah, so meat locker or something, right?
Oh dear. But
that's denial. When you're in denial, I think I'm doing this regular business, but it's just not this anymore. It's this, and which is, it sounds so ridiculous, but that's how it was.
That's denial. You have absolutely just nailed it. And that's what 95% of alcoholics do. Complete denial. No, I have no problem. I have no problem. I don't need help. Thank you very much. And that is just a fact. 1 in 20 realize okay, hang on. It's not normal to have a $30,000 bill per year for snacks,
Yeah.
as Robin Williams had put it.
Yeah.
No, no, no. Uh, wow. So can I ask with regards to your husband, you had this law enforcement link there, and he must have brought home some of the work, not in specifics. We all try to avoid that, but there would have been so many run-ins with drug users, with drug dealers. He must have come home and must have been very anti-drugs. Was that, do I
He was,
assume right?
yeah, he was, but he was also someone that would call me and say, "Hey, Chris, I'm with the guy. He's drinking. I just want to take him to a meeting. Can you tell me where a meeting is?" So he was very compassionate.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so he was really compassionate. And I would bring him lunch when he worked in the jails, I'd see a young kid in the holding cell with his hoodie on, and I would just feel so bad. I'm like, can't you just let him out? I mean, I'm sure he didn't mean to do what he's doing. My husband would look at me like, what? But I really meant it. I think because I had so much compassion in that sense for people, not me. I mean, I hadn't gone down that road yet and was nowhere near that, but at the time, but I just felt, I felt a lot of compassion, but he was always good about it. Yet, a little edgy about people doing bad things and, but that's usually to cover up some of their own bad things. I can say that too. So, yeah.
How about alcohol? Because I know that some policemen are very much hard working, hard playing, to just let off steam. It is
He,
just
he didn't too much because he had alcoholism in his life, in his family. So I think he's used to being around that, but he didn't do that. So when I was arrested, they arrested several people at the same time. And at the same time, they pulled my ex-husband aside, who was an Orange County sheriff, and I guess investigated, asked him questions. And so when they told him what I had done, he had said, "There's no way that Chris is involved with any of this." That's how kind of out of the ordinary or out of the scope it was. So he ended up not getting in trouble because obviously he had nothing to do with it, but was very surprised that I had anything to do with it. Which is denial and alcohol and drug use and that whole crazy world that people don't think this right-minded person who's smart and has a business, why would they do that? That makes no sense.
But there are two things that you have highlighted there in that story. It's the hiding that we are getting so good in, because you become a master. You become a master bullshitter. And that is a degree in life that can be very beneficial. But typically, when you meet then other bullshitters like us two now, we can smell that a mile away. The other thing that I find interesting is I know already the answer to this question I'm asking, but I'm asking that for our audience. Uh, how did you get found out? Because you were selling. To whom did you sell your wares?
Yeah, we were selling. When we got caught, it was from selling to a priest. It was a secretary to a bishop in Connecticut. I never met him. I still haven't met him, but yeah, who was actually addicted as well. He was.
And that is it. Guys, listen out there. If it doesn't matter who you are, who is listening in or watching this, when I was in rehab, we had anyone and everyone there. Okay, there are simple truck drivers who were addicted to pee to keep going, and there were film stars, and there were vineyard owners, and everyone, lawyers, teachers, retired people. It doesn't matter. Addiction gets everyone. Alcohol is the great equalizer. It doesn't actually care from which social strata you are. It doesn't care who you are, boy, girl, don't anywhere in between. It doesn't matter. It just takes you. And then add a few drugs in and add a bit of pee in and a bit of this, a bit of that. Wow. Yeah. The devil rides you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So, okay, that priest. Did the priest actually get done as well?
He got time as well. Mm-hmm.
Good. Because it's lovely to see that the law is equally then applied to everyone in a same measure rather than kind of.
No, I wouldn't say that. He ended up, because he was selling to lots of people too. So he ended up, I think he was looking at a long time, but he got 5 years. But I know his parishioners came into the courtroom and really talked on his behalf of why they didn't want him to do any time at all. And the sad thing is, from what I heard, he is still not sober. I mean, he got out, but it's a lot of work, and he has, I'm not going to speak for him. I hope he is sober. I still had never met him in person, but yeah. So he got way less time than he was.
Interesting. Okay.
Which, did that save his life? No, because who knows? Maybe, you just don't know. But yeah.
Wow. I think we
The
could
whole
talk.
Story there,
No. That's a complete different interview. And Kristy, maybe one day we'll do another interview to actually just look at the way that, especially in the United States, drugs and drug abuse is dealt with, and the many attempts of people to make life better by non-governmental organizations, by individuals such as you. But there is obviously so much more going on. And in actual fact, I nail you down already. Yes, you and I have another interview specifically for that. So guys, look forward to part 2 of that interview. But let's come back to you. So here finally, a priest dobs you in. Cool. And that was, whilst you certainly did not want that, you were already, though, in trouble yourself. There you were basically struggling still with your emotions, struggling still with the underlying problems, the trauma, the things that were driving the addiction. Because that's really what is always there. It is the drugs are a sign, a symptom of an underlying problem. And so you were actually on the way to get help, just not the way you actually thought it would ever happen to you. So
I knew what I needed to do to get help. I knew what I needed to do. I knew where I could go. I knew how to do all of that. But along with that meant I had to face everything that I lost. I had to face my emotions. I had to face all the shame. And then I had to work with all of that with no substances. And that was too huge for me to do. Even though I had support, I knew I could get support, but the magnitude of what I would need to do was too much. So I just stayed under until I went to prison. And then you're like, you're kind of slammed on the floor, and then the Band-Aid's ripped off, and everybody knows all your secrets. And it's like, that's a whole thing. The priest was being followed. He didn't tell. He was being followed, and he was getting on a plane to London that morning. And so we all at the same time, Connecticut, Las Vegas, got arrested. All did 5 years.
Not this guy, forget about him. That
Yeah,
is a different story.
yeah.
When it comes to you, when you came into prison, what was the support system for you? Was there were there mandatory drug education sessions? What was the wraparound support that you were given?
Well, that's, let's see. There was, when I was sentenced, I was in for a couple years before I was sentenced. And so I went to prison. I got arrested in Las Vegas. Then I went to Oklahoma, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Texas. And by the time I got to Texas, after I was sentenced, that was the first time there was any sort of a drug rehab type thing. It was called RDAP. And when you, in federal system, when you do RDAP, when you complete it, you get a year off your sentence. And so, that everyone gets a year off, and that's how it works if you complete it. And so I was actually excited to complete it. I came with a list of everything that I needed to do to work on. And the prison that I was at, because I had medical issues, they sent me to maximum security prison in Texas, which was far from my home in California, which was not a camp that my judge said that I was going to. It was, I was there, my cellmates were, serial killers that will never get out. It ran the gamut of lifers, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, lifers, and then there's me in there. And so I don't know why. I have an idea, but I don't know. The drug program there was, in theory, it would have been really good, but they ended up either kicking each person out or the people quit because of like, for instance, they said, thank God that I couldn't be a mother, because I would be a horrible daughter and a horrible sister. It was like shame and I'm a fighter. So, and I would do whatever they needed me to do in order to get a year off. Everybody would, pretty much. And so it was a defective program. It was, I was running this morning and I was listening to this song and I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, I still have feelings in my body that I didn't know that I could have for the way that they treated people. I don't know if it's because the prison got more money. Well, in that prison, you get more money if you're there because it's a medical issue. They also said they had me as they designate care levels. And so they put me at a care level 3, which meant I needed help with getting dressed in the morning, bathing, and eating. And I was like, what? And then at the same time, I'm working landscaping, mowing lawns. So I can't, number one, you don't help anybody get dressed in the morning in a prison. That's not an option, but they get more money for that. Yeah, exactly. So that kind of like really strengthened my bewilderment of government and power and the criminal justice system, because I didn't need to be at a maximum security prison in Texas. And getting kicked out of a drug program. So I got kicked out because they said I wasn't authentic and I wasn't in touch with my emotions. I'm like, well, no crap. I know that. If I was, I would not be here. And so, I got kicked out. So I had to do a whole other year in prison.
Huh.
So that was the extent of the drug program.
How the hell did you get your head right then? What changed?
I broke at that point. I was like, literally, the prison was on an air base, and I would watch the jets go by and I would think, I am as smart as that guy in that jet. I know. And I got kicked out of a drug program in prison. What the hell is happening? Like, what is going on? So that's when I pretty much broke. I was just devastated and I couldn't make sense of anything. I couldn't make sense of what the hell was happening. And really from that moment, I had a great boss in landscaping who was doing a 27-year nonviolent drug offense, which is a whole other story. And she was very kind to me, and she would assign me a flower bed, and she'd be like, "That, just go there today. And there's not a lot of flowers in prison, but it was the whole process of like breaking everything that I thought that I was, everything that I thought I needed to be, down to like devastation. And the fighter that I am kept building, and you know, I I was close to ending it all, but I didn't. And so I just kept fighting for myself, and realizing the different capabilities. I had my boss, the main boss in there, the officer, was very nice. He hardly said anything the whole time I was there. But I said I got kicked out. Like, I was shocked, and I was supposed to go home very shortly, and they kicked me out at the end, and I had to do another year. So he said, "Laschober, I don't think they're used to someone like you in there." And that just gave me that tiny glimpse of, okay, I'm not a horrible person. I'm not this like horrible person. And so I just spent that next extra year finding out who I was. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So I'm not saying I needed that to be where I am, but I used it to get to now. I think it's very interesting that I speak to people about authenticity. It's very heavy on my mind as I'm speaking to people about authenticity, knowing that just a few short years ago, I had to do another year in prison because I was inauthentic. So it's very interesting and surreal. Yeah. Isn't that, yeah, it's crazy. But you know what? Now that I was in that prison and all those things happen, I'm such a strong kick butt advocate for all of that. I have visions of going back to that prison with those people, not the inmates, but the officers, you know. And yeah, wouldn't it be amazing to be their boss and just like
I think just for you to actually offer them to hold the talk to the prison guards and actually say, "Look, guys, I was here. You might remember me. And here I am now. This is what I'm doing. And this is how you made me feel. This is what was going on from my mind at the time." Would that not be such a beautiful thing to do?
Because, that would be amazing.
Yeah. To actually, because these people have got their own prejudices, they've got their own trauma, they've got their own pain, they've got their own wife who has cheated on them, they've got their own mothers, fathers who were alcoholics. So there's so much going on in them that they are living their little blinkered lives. And suddenly to see someone like you might actually give them hope, because they are looking just at the inmates and think, "Oh, what society has come to. Look at all these trash people." And that's sort of the kind of defense mechanism that you want to build up. You want to sort of, just, okay, that's them, and I live such a different life. To actually break down these kind of defenses and make it a true yin and yang, and make it a true acceptance that addicts do horrible things. They are not horrible people necessarily. So it is a huge difference in that thought. We addicts, we do stupid things. So
does everybody else, right?
True too.
I don't like when people point to just addicts or prisoners, because I've met a lot of people that are CEOs that have done some crappy things. They could still wear a great dress and a great pair of shoes and have money. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, it really shocks me when I'm walking, if I'm dressed up and walking and I get this response from somebody and I'm the same person that was in shackles. that was in black box shackled with women that would like bring their kids aside, like looking at me that way. So we all have all that in us.
Mm.
Don't
Beautiful.
you think?
I could not agree more. I could not agree more. And that's the weird thing that we are recognizing. And that is what makes you and me so powerful in our voices, because we have got this conviction that we actually know that it's normal to be a saint and a sinner at the same time. We are both. We incorporate all those aspects, all those nuances, all those facets. You don't just have one mask, the nice mask, the beautiful mask. If you only believe in that, if you truly believe that this is your life, oh my God. No, the negative emotions are just as much part of you, and they are there. So learn how to deal with it. But that's easier said than done. You need to be shaken and taken out of your circumstances. In your case, by going into jail, and not just any jail, but maximum security. In my case, by people that loved me saying, no, enough is enough. You will not work now. You will go into rehab, and you like it or lump it. You will go, or I'll divorce you, in the words of my wife. And it is, I was full of shame, guilt, all these negative emotions. But then to be actually an inmate in my little prison for a very short period of time, just 4 weeks, was the best thing that ever bloody happened to me. So it rattled my cage, and it actually broke my cage. I was able to literally turn free by starting over again and dealing with the emotions and doing it slowly to get to. I mean, how was it for you when you actually got out? So finally your sentence was over and you saw the sunshine again, the first time as a free woman. What was that flow of emotion like, and where did you go from there?
I actually moved to Oregon, where I am now. My mom and my sister had moved there. And so I thought that it would be best, even though I've lived my whole life in Southern California, but I wanted to be near them. I wanted my mom to, I want to spend time with her, and she was real supportive while I was in there. So I just wanted to be near them. And it was a slow, interesting. Now I have all those emotions. I'm paying attention to. I'm not afraid of them. I'm solid. In like, well, you can do this, and you can live here, and you can be in solitary confinement. You can do this. You can get on a bus. You can do all these things, and one by one, doing that. The thing that helped the most was sharing, because I wasn't going to tell anyone where I was. I mean, why would you tell anyone you were in prison? There's no reason for that. But as I told somebody, the response was different than I thought. It was very curious and loving. And then it made me feel freer. And so I just kept hearing that and experiencing that and sharing a little bit, not just little tiny, like almost like you're testing the waters, and people, the response was really quite lovely. And so I just kept doing that, and it really turned into a very that's what got rid of shame and got me feeling more confident. And I went to a reentry program that would give me some time off my probation, and because I had 5 years probation, and I had a beautiful judge there who would come once a month with people that had just got out of prison, and she's the one that's put most of them away in Oregon, and she would say, okay, you did your time, how can I help you? And so people would go around the room, and she would help them get licenses, help them with whatever. It was really amazing. So around
Ooh.
the table, the judge, federal judge, police officers, DAs, counselors, and prisoners or ex-cons. And so around the table, we would say what our month was like, and she would be right there helping, just in her regular clothes. And so for me, she said, well, you're going to college, right? And so I said, well, I think I'm kind of old. I'd like to go, but I don't know what I want to do. So I ended up going and graduating last year. And so that little bit of college helped me get more confident. And I saw, wow, I am smart, and all these support and confidence in doing scary things, even though that's hard and scary, you do it anyway. I'm thinking, like, I walked into the college, I'm like, okay, I'm nervous to walk in because, you said, where have you been for 5 years, And so I'm sure housewives understand that if they haven't worked for 5 years, people are like, where have you been, But I had to just draw on the really tough circumstances I was in not that long ago to say, Kristy, you can do this. You can talk to someone. And I think it was a divine grace for me that each person was very loving and supportive that I had never met. And I just kept experiencing that constantly. So that makes me want to be that person for other people as they're getting out of prison and making sure they have that support. I'm helping with college, coming out of prison, and recovery, all that kind of stuff. So things are good right now.
And all that kind of stuff. I mean, please, you're underselling yourself big here, isn't it? Because you are really starting to live that. You're starting to become your own strong voice and your own advocate for people who have been in similar shoes than you. You've just started a new link there, haven't you? Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it's shocking to me sometimes how bold I can be with my voice when I am I'm not a judge, I'm not a senator, and I'm on a Zoom meeting with them, but I'm bold enough to speak my mind. And I think, and I'm kind of surprised after, but I think it's because I have the experience. So I feel like I want you to know what it's really like in there. So when you sentence somebody, I want you to know exactly what happens. And when you talk about having college in prison, and those 5 prisons I was at, there's no college. You learn to crochet an ugly bear. You learn about national parks. Lifers learn about national parks that they will never go to. They won't attend. So there is no lifting up. It's punitive. There's no reform. And so I'm passionate now because when we're in prison and you say, the guards have their own stuff, they do. But they also have all the power. You're in a cage and they have all the power when you can use the restroom, when you can go outside, if you can go outside. If you have 2 oranges, they will take 1 orange. So it's more than just, people have their stuff. You're so powerless that it's kind of, a little taste of what's going on in the world now with the whole COVID and masks and all the things taken away from people on a tiny, tiny, tiny scale. But so now that I have a voice and people are listening, I'm very bold about saying how people, when they get out, they need opportunities. They need to be able to go to college. They need to know that they are smart, that they can achieve, and that they're lovable, and that they are no worse, no lower than the CFO sitting next to me. It's no different. When I started a thing with women called Women Fight Night, and it's in my town, and it's really women stand up and tell a story, like a testimony or story about their life, so other women can get encouraged. And so I asked them one night to write a little note to the girls, some of the girls I left behind in prison, just a word of encouragement. So they did that. I'm trying to bridge community that have never been experienced prison with people in prison, so they each can see how they're no different. And so what I was shocked to find was people that were writing the prisoners, the women, I thought it would be a quick little Bible verse or a nice quote, but they were telling their secrets to these women in prison about their own addiction, about, divorce, about taking care of aging parents. And what hit me so hard was right before we wrote that stuff, they were all sitting there nice and pretty, looking at the speaker, not sharing any of the turmoil going on inside. And I thought, oh, that needs to change, because that's why if you throw a deep addiction in there, that's what can take you down. And so my voice is to, try to pull that out of people so they know they're not alone and they're not ashamed and they're no worse than anybody else, and try to kind of destigmatize and have people know that we're all the same needs. You just happen to be in a jumpsuit with the black box shackled and you're driving a Mercedes, but some of the same stuff's happening, right?
So beautiful, so beautiful, and so spot on. Absolutely spot on. If I talk quietly to friends and acquaintances, and they know that I have gone through some interesting times, they are not too afraid to share with me. And the amount of shit I hear, the amount of stress and troubles and tribulations they go through is enormous. Yet very few are sharing. Very few are, unless they bump into me, or they come into a situation where they perceive it to be safe and perceive it to be okay. And in all fairness, writing things down, well, that's actually reasonably safe. And in this particular case that you mentioned, to send it to one inmate who will probably never ever go with that, oh, look, go to the I don't know, newspaper and blast it out there, or go onto the intranet. Nah, that won't happen. So I think this was a little bit of a safe environment in which they felt they could share. But how beautiful it is to share. It's the connection. It's the sharing that is such powerful.
Yeah.
Remember, guys out there, there is this beautiful experiment where rats were given the choice between water or opiate-laced water. And yeah, they always went for the opiate-laced water. Then the researchers changed the whole thing. They actually went to build a dream park for rats. So where they could go in there were other rats, and they were playing, they were running, and were doing things that only rats can do, and beautiful. And then they had, again, the same choice, the two kind of little things, either choosing water or heroin-laced water. And guess what? They chose the water over the heroin-laced water, because they had connection, they had fun, they went out there, they in their little rat environment, they had a great time, and there was no room for drugs. And here you go, same thing: connection, openness, transparency, joy, passion, all those things, all those beautiful things. They are the key ingredient to living a life so meaningful and powerful, something you deserve, something you should aim towards. And Kristy, you have had the unique circumstances that allowed you to develop that passion. And for that, you are, I mean, to just listen to you puts me in awe. It's wow, you have become a very powerful woman there, a very powerful voice, which I think is sorely needed when I listen to you describing the prison system over there. And regrettably, I do not have the insights to compare the prison system here with us. But my educated guess would be that it is probably needing similar issues. I'm not sure about the power games that are being played. I cannot discuss that, but Now there's so much more. I think we'll talk about it in the part 2 of our interview, and discuss far more in detail the prison system in the United States, and maybe your vision of how could it be in the future. So when Kristy is president of the United States, where do we go from there? Kristy, it was such a beautiful interview. I'm very, very humbled that you gave me your time and shared your passion and shared your insights. You are a great woman. I'm looking forward to seeing where this power of nature is going and what you will create in due course. So thank you very much for coming. Is there any parting words you want to tell our people here, our viewers? For example, how can they get hold of you? How can they learn more about your story?
Well, I have a website called KristyLaschober.com. And there I just give some book excerpts. I'm writing a book and I have the proposal done, looking for an agent. But it's a really good book, and again goes back to sharing and yeah, and I have tips on journaling, a downloadable sheet that you can go to learn why it's important to journal, which is what I did when I first got out. Every morning, that's what kind of grounded me, is to journal, to talk about I'm okay. I can be a light and love in this world, although I have nothing, but I could build on that. So I thought that was really important for me. And really just the parting words is that, the way I live my life right now, I tell people is that if like you were saying in the beginning, the voices, if the voices are negative or tearing you down or don't make you feel good, then those are lies. And if the voices are supportive and joyful and cheering you on and assisting you, then that's true. So if that's a good way to decipher if you should listen to it or not. And though that way of thinking has really kept me on the track of being positive and not letting those other voices, lie to me to tell me to be quiet.
I love it.
That's for everybody.
What better closing words for this beautiful interview? Kristy, look after yourself, and the same to you out there, guys. Bye.
Bye.